Dustin, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are stoked to have you on the show today, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to dive into development today. We've had a bunch of people on the podcast, but no one's really dove into that world and could give us like in-depth answers on kind of like how to develop a property. And we'll get there, but I'm excited just for listeners to give you some insight. We're going to be talking about development today, but I also want to talk pre-real estate. And you have a very interesting background. You scaled a very interesting company. So take us through the journey, next like 5 to 10 minutes. We'll ask you a bunch of questions about it, but I'm so curious on how you went from the Marine Corps to scaling your next company to eventually development.
All right, well, buckle up because this is definitely an interesting journey. So, and again, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and very excited to be talking to you guys today. All right, so let's back up to 2005. I joined the Marine Corps originally to become a fighter pilot. The recruiter said, "Hey, why don't you sign this contract and you're going to go to boot camp first, become enlisted, join the reserves, then go to college, and in between junior and senior year, you can go become an officer and then go fly jets." Well, recruiters never lie. So anyways, he convinced me to go be a Mustang, which is enlisted first and then into the officer program. So I did that. I joined the Marine Corps. I went to reserves. And then before I started college, we actually deployed to Iraq the first time. So did a tour in Iraq, came home, started college, minored in real estate, majored in finance. And in between my junior and senior year at University of Florida, it was another opportunity to deploy. So we went back over to Afghanistan, same group of guys, came home. And after that tour in Afghanistan, I was basically like, I think that I'm going to remain in the reserves because I've seen enough combat. I've seen enough to get, what I think I was looking for when I joined the military. And so I gave up my flight contract and just decided to stay at the reserves my entire career. I've just retired after 20 years last December. So while I was remaining in reserves, I graduated UF, got my first job at Lockheed Martin, moved up to Manassas, Virginia, just outside of DC, and was working for Undersea Systems submarine program that I was on, and very quickly realized that corporate environment was absolutely not for me. I don't want to go into it, but it was just a lot of same things happening every single day, a lot of toxicity, the same people trying to backstab each other. It was just not for me, just to keep it short. So I had this opportunity that got passed to me by a friend that I was serving in the Marine Corps with about Edward Jones. So I dove into it more. It was called the Forces Program, where they paid for you to get your Series 6 or your Series 7, your Series 66 and become a financial advisor. I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I can work for myself. I have my own office. I have an assistant. It's not really a corporate environment. It's very much like entrepreneurial. So I took it, and it brought me down here to St. Petersburg, Florida, which is where I am today. And I basically went and got into door knocking, which was their thing. Edward Jones is a big approach in like going and knocking on doors. So here I am in a 3-piece suit going knocking on 8,000 doors all over Pinellas County. And it really taught me a lot. That's a totally other conversation. But during that time, I was able to buy my first house with a VA home loan, 0% down. I actually got paid $300 for my very first house that I bought. Because the guy was like, I'll give you a $300 Home Depot gift card if you close on it today. I was like, cool. So we got our contract to close it, and he ended up with a $300 gift card, no money down. And then I house hacked it. I rented out the bedrooms. So that's how I first got into my real estate investing career, which is co-living, I guess, house hacking, co-living. So one of the guys I rented those rooms out to was a gentleman that had just went out and acquired a new prisoner transport company. And he was telling me about it in passing. And I was like, dude, that sounds wild. And then I kept focusing on financial advising. I was growing my office. I was doing very well. And one day he came up to me and he was like, hey, like, I'm going to talk to you about coming on board as our business development director. So long story short, I'd had a conversation with him and his brother. And I, at the time, was not married. I had no kids. I was single. And he's like, move to Orlando, help us scale this company. And you have no glass ceiling. Let's go. So I took it and I rented out my master bedroom, which is what I was living in. So then now I have 3 bedrooms rented in this little single family house. I moved to Orlando. And then because that was cash flowing so well in that house, I ended up buying another 4-bedroom, 3-bath in Orlando and rented that by the room, cash flowed that. And then I started focusing on this prisoner transport company. So keeping it high level, over the next 5 years, we grew that company through first like straight bootstrapping. We went from 200,000 in revenue to 3 million. And then we did a merger and acquisition, cash-free merger with a larger company. And we scaled that company up. And then in 2019, we ended up exiting in an ESOP, employee stock option plan, for a large amount of enough money to where I got some money to get started in real estate development. So kind of circling back, I moved from Orlando back to St. Pete. I was still the VP of business development. And we bought our first piece of land, my wife and I, and we were like, let's build our own house. So then I found a builder to come and build this house on the piece of land. And by the time we were done with it, we had $300,000 in equity upside. So that's where I got the bug, the initial bite of like real estate development and the power of creating forced equity in a project. We bought the land for 80 grand. We built the 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom house for what was it, 315, and then it ended up appraising at like 750 at the time. Now it's worth over $1 million. But we actually moved out of that house and Airbnb'd it and moved into a nicer neighborhood, and it performed very well. And then I decided to continue to do that, just get into real estate development. So I kept doing that. I would go out and buy land. I'd find a builder, build it, run the numbers, make sure it worked. And then I'd cash out refi at the end, get all my original money back out of it, rent it up, and move on and keep doing it. And several other things throughout that period, but that's high level, kind of where I am today.
I mean, that's great, man. I think we don't often talk about like building and scaling a business too often. I don't want to harp on it for too long, but I am curious about the prisoner transport company and just like what actually is that business? Like I get it from like saying it, but like what are you guys physically doing? And how did you go from 200,000 to, I know you mentioned before, the multiple millions, tens of millions. Like what was just give us like a background on how that company like operated.
Yeah, for sure. It's very niche and there's not a lot of people that operate in it because the barrier to entry is massive and there's so much liability. But when you think prisoner transport, it's 95% extraditions, which means that if I go and I rob a bank in Pinellas County and then I don't get caught and then I go over to Orange County, California, and I'm just like driving down the street, I run a red light, I get pulled over by a cop and I decide to pull over and they see that I have a warrant out for my arrest in Pinellas County for robbing a bank, he's going to arrest me. He's going to take me to Orange County, hold me for 10 days, and then they're going to notify Pinellas County. And then Pinellas County has 10 days to come pick me up, to bring me back, to extradite, to then see and face my charges. So instead of Pinellas County sending their deputies all the way out to Orange County, they contract companies like us so that their deputies can stay local and support their local communities. And then we go and pick them up and bring them back for them.
I got it. So you'll do this. Your company, was it nationwide? Like you would go contract and bring people who got arrested to the places that they, I mean, what are other scenarios? Like, is that typically the scenario? If somebody got arrested in one place, they fled to another, they got arrested there, they bring them back to the original where they were from? Is that kind of the...
Yeah. So yes, to answer your questions, yes, we were nationwide. We did 25,000 transports a year. We had over 1,000 clients, sheriff's offices and Department of Corrections, and the company's still operating to this day. And it was a mix between warrants where we would extradite someone and then you would return them as well. Once they're done, you have to get them returned. So then we get paid to bring them back. But mostly it's taking someone and moving them back to where they have the charges.
So if you've ever tried getting a mortgage, which I'm sure many of you have, you know how daunting and discouraging it can be of a process. The slow process, paperwork, being told no without any real explanation. One time we were even told that taking out a home equity line of credit on an investment property wasn't even possible. So that all changed when we were introduced to Neo Home Loans. What makes Neo different is literally how they approach lending. They're not just checking the boxes. They're legit problem solvers. They look at your entire financial picture and explore multiple angles, literally until they find a strategy that works. They helped us reposition our portfolio, pull out lines of credits to scale, and structure everything for long-term growth. And on top of that, their rates were some of the most competitive that we've seen. They just literally did whatever it takes to find a solution. For us, Neo has become our liability advisor, the same way you have a financial advisor on the asset side for the liabilities. If you're serious about building wealth through real estate, it's worth sitting down with them and getting your lending strategy dialed in. If you want to book a call with them, click the link in our show notes. Their team is unreal, but don't just take it from us. Find out for yourself.
Cool. Very cool. Actually, what I'm curious about too, and I think sometimes these questions get glossed over, and you might not know the answer, but your friend calls you and says, hey, I want you to handle business development for me. And you just have to move to Orlando. Obviously you took the risk there, but then day one, like you're meeting with your buddy, right? And just kind of probably getting a lay of the land for the business. And I'm sure there's still a lot to learn for going from financial advising to like, how the heck this random business, how are you going to scale it? So can you maybe talk us through a little bit of the war room, like how you guys went about scaling this thing and like dividing roles and what actually some of the day-to-day look like? I'm just curious behind the hood or under the hood, what it looks like.
Yeah. So I just had a conversation with a friend of mine today about, it doesn't necessarily mean the industry doesn't really matter. The personality type of the person does. That's why like culture index and predictive index is like so important, because like you can see how someone operates. And if they operate like as a growth person, you can put them in any seat across any industry and they'll just learn it. Learning an industry is not hard. Having the tools to succeed in an industry is the hard part. So like I was just made for growth. So they put me in this role and I'm huge on relationships. So the short answer is we scaled this thing through relationships. I was meeting with tons of sheriffs, directors of jails, jail directors, and Department of Corrections, and we were just making relationships. And there's also RFPs and RFBs, requests for proposal, requests for bids. So we were getting really competitive on our government contracting bids. But when I first joined that company, man, I was the only person that was not a part of the family in an executive role. It was a family-run company. So that was a struggle with that dynamic. I was the outsider. So I actually worked my way up. And I don't want to get too into the details, but I worked my way up to become kind of the director or the president of the company. And we ended up just working together. Me and the original brother, who was my friend, we bumped a lot of heads. Our personality types, if you looked at both of our culture indexes, we're like polar opposites. We should not be working together. We bumped a lot of heads. But after we put aside, personality types, and we realized, we've scaled this thing to the point where we have bootstrapped it enough. So we either need to now bring on equity or we need to partner with someone else that has a nice sized checkbook. That's when I ended up calling our competitor that we were taking a notable amount of business from them and saying, hey, why don't we work smarter, not harder, and combine forces here? And we did. And we ended up doing a cash-free merger between us. And then we also rolled up 3 other companies, prisoner transport companies that were a little smaller, underneath this big umbrella. And we were operating all as separate prisoner transport companies, but all have ownership in the holding company. And then eventually we went through the Surface Transportation Board to become one entity, because the Surface Transportation Board basically handles antitrust to make sure that there's no monopoly. So once they approved it, we were able to roll them all up into one brand and operate. So it was 4 prisoner transport companies that came into one. And then by doing that, we were able to more strategically price. And then in the midst of that, COVID happened. It shut our entire network down on the ground. Like we were operating 50 50 vans across the US, and overnight, like everything shut down because these jails were not letting us house our inmates. And like when we're transporting inmates across the US, you can't just check into your nearest Holiday Inn Express. You have to stop, pull over, and house them in a jail. And if the jails were not taking our inmates overnight because of COVID. So it completely shut us down overnight. So it was like, okay, what do we do here? And a lot of companies went out of business because they had to shut down. And we ended up pivoting and moving all of our business to commercial air, which was a blessing in disguise because the liability shot way down because now we don't have a ton of inmates being trucked around the US, and they're going from point A to point B within a few hours versus a few days. So that ended up really helping us. And there's so many more details if you guys want to talk specifics, but yeah.
No, it's fascinating to me because, I talk to so many people. This is why we're so curious. There's so many ways to make money or start business. Like that type of business to me is so foreign. I'm just like, obviously, it exists. You see it in movies, prisoner transport, but like to hear that and the operations and how it actually works, it's just so cool. So that's why I love America, right? You just have this opportunity to create a business that out of thin air, right? I mean, I know it's a family business and it's been around for a while, but it's also cool the dynamic of you growing within the family business and becoming president, because I worked in my family's business and I know, I was managing the relationship between my uncle and my father who ran the company. I was the only one in the third generation, but I can't even imagine somebody from outside the family becoming they tried that, didn't work out. So very cool. I want to get to like some of the development stuff too. So you found out your passion or your desire to do development based on your personal residence, right? You were like, oh, I created this equity. Wait, how much is the developer making? Is that kind of the thought process there? Like, okay, this seemed to work really well for us as the end buyer. I wonder how the developer, how did they do it? Is that kind of where it stemmed?
Yeah, exactly. Because we were living in a little sub part of St. Petersburg called Gulfport, and it was just,
I know exactly what it is.
I would rather be in St. Pete. And we were talking about having kids. So we're like, let's go and find a bigger house. Let's go get a bigger house. But at the time, like a bigger house was just like priced egregiously. So we're just like, I looked at, there's this builder here locally that does what's called build on your lot. So basically you own the lot and they come in and they'll build like hands off. You're hands off. They'll come in and they'll handle the architectural plans. They'll do everything, like permitting, everything for you. So my first build, we hired them and I got a construction to perm loan, which is basically a loan that converts. It'll pay you the construction. You pay the interest only during the construction on the draw money only. And when you're completed, when you have certificate of occupancy, it converts automatically without a refi into a 30-year fixed. So we did that for the first time. And after we completed it, I was just like, this is incredible. Like I can do this over and over again because I ran the numbers and I was like, okay, my land plus my soft cost plus my construction cost. And then the ARV at the end, it's at a 70% or less leverage. I can cash out all my original investment. So I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. So I called it the BRRRR method. Instead of the BRRRR method, it's the BRRRR, not like Justin. But it is buy, build, rent, refinance, repeat. And for a while there, I was able to cash out 100% of my original investment so that my returns were infinite. And then on a couple of the deals, I was able to cash out my original investment plus another 100 grand. So I was getting paid and getting 100% of my capital back out of it. And then I DSCR loaned it on the back end and it still cash flows at the same time. So that was when I was like light bulb and I just decided to do that in like a build to rent model.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Build to rent is typically your strategy now. So if you were to walk us through an ideal situation, maybe you want to walk us through a deal that you've done. It's up to you. But like, hey, I was able to locate this land, mailers, however you did it. We bought it for X. We built for X. Appraised here. We were able to rent it for X. I'd love to hear what that's like. Because actually, it's funny. The episode before this, we were talking to a developer in New Jersey. And I'm very curious to hear the difference in what you're seeing working in Like, is all of your development Tampa, St. Pete area? Is that where you're doing it all?
Only St. Pete.
Only St. Pete. Okay. So yeah, could you walk us through a specific deal, whether it's one that you've done or just like, hey, if I found this is what I'm looking for to be successful in the next one?
Yeah, no, 100%. So I will preface what I'm about to say with times have changed since some of these, because interest rates have gone way up, land values have come way up. So it is harder, not impossible, but harder to make the full cash out refinance happen. So right now I'm ending up having to leave a little bit of my capital in the deals. And actually, we've shifted to some of them, which were originally going to be build to rent. We've needed to build to sell just because once you develop so many projects, you got to get some of your money back out to keep it in the game.
Also, I think that people a bit not pulling your entire capital out is kind of normal in most scenarios, right? Too, like, I mean, to do the full BRRRR and get all your money out, it's like that's a home run. At least the way I'm picturing it, like if you can do that over and over, and to obviously a lot harder today than it was when the interest rates were 3.5. So yeah, tell us about a deal, and if you want to do a more recent one, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'll do one we just finished up. So it was a St. Pete deal. I picked up the land for $135. We had some tree work, minimal tree work on the site. It was already demoed. It was a vacant lot, and I'd say we were going to develop a triplex. So we did a single family house in the front, standalone, and then in the rear we did two bedroom, 2-bath apartments, upstairs, downstairs, with parking across the back. This is a 5,000 square foot lot, by the way, 50 by 100, which is all the stuff I do is infill. So we ended up building it. My all-in cost on that with the land, soft costs, and construction was $750. I was able to get it appraised through a local, I would consider them hard money, but they have decent rates. DSCR loan, 6.8%, and we pulled out $850,000. Wow. So after closing costs, I netted about 80 grand, maybe a little less. So I got all my original capital out. I was able to make 80,000, and then I rented it up. And now today it cash flows pretty nicely. I believe my mortgage payment on that's about 6,000, and my rents are at 8,500 a month. So
right, that's
2,500
awesome.
a month. Infinity,
because you built it, you're not, there shouldn't be too much maintenance in the first, 5 to 8 years, whatever that is. So that obviously it's not $2,500 a month in cash flow, but you're probably cash flowing $1,500 a month there easily, right? Like that's pretty solid. I was this is my next question. So based on what you're doing, I mean, it sounds that deal is awesome. How much has the hurricane weather, that situation, how much has that played a factor in the insurance and the short-term insurance that you need versus longer-term insurance? I don't know I've never done development, so I don't know. I'm kind of wet behind the ears on it. Like, how much of that has that come to play? Because I know one of my best friends, one of my better friends, is a flipper down in Tampa, and he had a couple properties in St. Pete with Helene, and well, I guess it wasn't Milton, it was more Helene that just it got destroyed, and he's dealing with insurance and this and that. I'm curious how that factors into like the work that you do.
I'll be honest with you. Insurance is probably one of the number one reasons why I decided to stop buying older homes as rentals, and why I wanted to start building my rental portfolio from the ground up with new construction, because the insurance difference is insane. I can give you an example. Like, everybody talks about this insurance, like massive insurance issue in Florida. Well, it's not an issue for new construction, at least residential new construction. I mean, that triplex, I pay $3,000 a year to insure it. Whereas if that were an old 1925 style or 1950 style triplex, I would probably be paying over $10,000 or more a year to insure it.
I can give you like an example. Like, I have a ranch, 3-bed, 2-bath in Tampa, flood zone, which makes it tougher, but I pay $10,000 for the year. Now that's flood and homeowners. I'm trying to think. Yeah, $800 a month probably. So I'm like, and it's 1,500 square foot, but it's, so yeah, I'm literally experiencing exactly that. And my knock on wood, it hasn't gone up because I avoided problems during Helene and Milton. But yeah, okay, so that's the difference then. And I guess what I'm seeing in my place in South Tampa, I'm seeing these lots get sold for $700,000, and new construction being built on it. And that might be exaggerated. I don't know the exact number, but like I'm looking at just the growth down there and thinking like, regardless of the hurricanes, people are moving to Tampa and they're moving to St. Pete. Have you seen a shift in the last couple of years because of that? Because I know obviously the last 6 years, 7 years, everyone's been moving there. Have you seen migration go the other way? Anything that you can notice or not really?
I know that the real estate market has slowed down significantly since the hurricanes. Because, dude, we could have a great conversation about this actually. So I would say Florida in general and Tampa has really slowed down since Helene and Milton, but not because of Helene and Milton only. So if you think about the timing, do you know like about the NAR lawsuit and how like the real estate?
I'm a real estate agent, so I'm like,
like, okay, now we have 2 hurricanes that wrecked a bunch of these flood houses, these older homes that should have never been built as low as they were built in areas that's 3 feet above the sea level, like 3 feet, and they were building living space 3 feet above sea level. Like
mine is 7 above, and I only found that out because I have photos of the neighborhood covered in water, and I'm a little bit above. But I realize I don't even know what a good percentage above would be. But yeah, 3 feet sounds like not a good place to be. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Shore Acres is our kind of like our black sheep, I guess, in this area where everyone got wrecked in that neighborhood. Like I'm talking 4 or 5 feet of flood water. And then you bring in FEMA with the 50% rule. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So the FEMA 50% rule says that if they're going to assess your home, first of all, and they're going to say your home is worth, let's say it's $300,000. So if the repairs on your home to get it back up to livable condition is at 50 or more, and 50% of your home's value, you have to pay to bring it into compliance to get it out of a flood zone. So as an example, let's say someone's house assessed at 300,000 and they had 200 grand worth of renovations that they needed to do because their entire house was wrecked. They're stuck. They cannot, unless they have 200 grand just laying around, but they can't improve the home unless they bring it up above the flood zone.
And that's going to cost a lot more than 200 grand to do that.
Correct. Yeah. So what people are having to do is either demo the house to build brand new, or they're lifting these homes up and putting them on garages, like literally lifting them up with a crane and putting them on structures. And like most people that live in Shore Acres have mortgages. The mortgage company is not going to let them demo their house unless they pay that off. Most people that have these homes are stuck. They're having to sell at land value because they can't renovate because FEMA won't let them, and they don't have the money to bring them up or knock them down for new construction. So what you had is a huge flood of, no pun intended, homes hitting the market, and just like what we call them is like zombie houses. They're just sitting there empty, flooded homes, just mass inventory hitting the market on the MLS. So now you have inventory hitting the MLS that are just a bunch of knockdown homes. You have the NAR saying like, we can't tell buyer's agents what they're going to make. So now buyer's agents aren't as hungry to work anymore. And then you have insurance costs, and then you have interest rates going up, and then the media just gobbling this up and spitting it out to the entire US about how Florida is, doomsday, which is not. So you just have to think about all those levers that were working against us. The people that live here, we know better, right? We're seeing it. We know what's going on, and it's not nearly as bad as what the media is portraying. I think there is incredible opportunity right now to buy. Incredible. Like I was just having a conversation today about this with another investor. And I said, I've been investing since 2013. I've never seen a better time to invest in quality assets that produce cash flow at this buy-in, like new construction specifically. A lot of these guys, like even like me, I have a couple of townhouses on the market. We're willing to make deals at break-even prices right now for people that want to buy them. Like, it's a great time to buy new construction. It's a great time to buy fixer-uppers. People are just wanting to sell them, and I don't think it's going to last long, but it's created this incredible window of opportunity for real estate investors here in the Tampa Bay area.
Hey, let me pause the episode real quick. Let me know if this sounds like you. You're making six figures, you're climbing the corporate ladder, investing in your 401k and your Roth IRA, and maybe even a brokerage account. But deep down, you're asking yourself, is this really it? Like, am I just going to do this thing for the next 30 years and hope to retire in my 60s? That was exactly us just a few years back. We were curious and excited about real estate, but overwhelmed and without a roadmap. If you fast forward to today, we've built a portfolio of over 80 cash flowing units and grown our net worth to over $2 million. We made it our mission to help busy professionals like you take that same leap and start building generational wealth for yourself and your family. That's exactly why we created the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, a private real estate investing community designed to help you get your first rental property under your belt in as little as 90 days. Inside, you'll get direct access to us, our full investing network, private off-market deals, and our exact playbook, and a community of investors who are closing deals every single week. That first property changed everything for us. We always talk about it. It was the true foundation for building generational wealth. And honestly, if we had access to something like this when we first started, we'd be 10 times further along by now. So if this sounds just like you, click the link in our show notes and schedule a call with me. Yes, me. I'll be taking the calls. We'll go over your goals, map out a plan, and get you ready to close your first deal. Let's get it. Yeah, I've kind of seen that too. I've kept my ear to the ground a little bit. I'm just more so praying because mine is a short-term rental, and I'm going to be down there in a few weeks because I like to visit a few times a year, especially when it's cold here in Philadelphia. But I'm like, with these hurricanes, I'm thinking like, okay, what's my long-term play? I love the area that my property's in. I'm not looking to really buy any more down there. It's more of like a lifestyle thing. But I'm like, I think long-term, I might even knock my own house down and build like something, new construction in that area because I just love the area so much. But it's interesting to see what's happened because like obviously Zillow and Redfin aren't accurate, but like my property was on this trajectory, and then I'm seeing properties in my neighborhood that are flood homes that are going for like $300,000, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is not the time to make a move. Obviously, I'm going to hold this thing forever, but then you had nothing happen in 2024-5, right? In down there. And, it's like everyone, it's just, you never know. Right. So I think the opportunity, it is interesting, what's going on. And obviously in St. Pete, it's a little bit different too, because there's just different laws, like with Airbnb, for example, like, technically they have the 30-day stay. I don't know how much people pay attention to that or not, but, anyway, I love Tampa. I'm curious about what you're looking to do. Like, what are your goals for 2026 as it relates to development? Like, do you have a number of units you're trying to build? Like, what's the story look like and where you're trying to get to?
Yeah, good question. I do want to back up real quick and just add a couple other factors as well to kind of the real estate market we're in, just to educate people from out of state that are listening, because the market and what the media portrays to people, mostly the media, is like, people think they're waiting on the sideline for the values to just drop, right? And the values are not going to drop, and I'll tell you why. It's because a lot of these homeowners are locked into 2.1%, 2.2% interest rates, and they're not going to keep dropping their price to go anywhere unless they get what they want for their homes. So where the opportunity lies really is in these knockdown homes, the flooded homes, in the new constructions that have been finished, where there's not a tremendous amount of buyers active right now because of the interest rates, and them kind of just waiting on the sidelines, figuring out what's going on geopolitically. But yeah, I just want to paint that picture because like we're kind of at like a stalemate right now. It's not dropping and it's not really going up much because of the people are just kind of standing firm on their prices. Where the opportunities lie, I think, are the new construction homes that have just been finished, and because there's carrying costs for those developers, and then also the knockdown homes as well, and the heavy flips.
What do you think changes that? Do you think interest rates have to go back into the low 5s or high 4s for that to change? Obviously, if you had a crystal ball, that would be ideal, right? But like, I'm curious on what you think could shift that. I mean, maybe another storm could change things even more. But I'm curious, do you have any like thoughts on how the stalemate maybe gets broke? Because I agree with you. I don't think home values are going to drop anytime soon. I mean, I'm talking. It's hard to talk like micro. In every market, there's a different thing going on. But even macro, it's like people are like, "Are we going to get this?" You're right. They're waiting on the sidelines. Are we going to get this drop? I'm like, no, we're not. Most places need to build significantly more. There's just a supply issue, and then no one's leaving. So, do you think there's any solve for it? I mean, I realize that's kind of a grandiose question, but.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that you need to talk micro when you talk about this stuff, though, because like if you zoom out macro, it's kind of hard. Like Fort Myers and like Northport or places like that, they're probably, much different than a Tampa Bay, than a St. Pete. As far as solving for it, I believe that there's a black swan event that's going to be happening probably in the next 90 days. If you look at our president, he is a wild card. And he's already talking about, banning BlackRock sized institutions from buying single family houses. Now, granted, from the research I've done, that's a very small percentage of homes that they actually own.
I think it's 4%. I'm actually making a reel about this. I think it's 4%. I've heard 3.5 and then I heard 7. I'm trying to do some research to find out what the actual number is. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, let me know when you figure that out.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's a really small number. And I think like it's not really going to make that big of a difference other than optics for him looking like he's doing, the first time home buyer a favor. I think what's going to happen is that something is going to either this portability with the interest rates is going to start getting people moving again that he's talking about. I don't think the 50-year mortgage is going to do anything personally. And then I think he's got something else up his sleeve that's going to start moving. And then you have to talk about, we have a new Fed chair coming in May. Mm-hmm. So that's also going to start moving things. There's just a lot of positive things happening. And here, specifically in the Florida market, if Governor Ron DeSantis actually pulls off this no property tax thing for primary homes, that's going to be massive. People will be moving here from all over the US because think about the difference in their mortgage payment if they don't have to pay property taxes.
Where does the revenue come from for the state if that happens? I mean, is that like a whole thing? I heard that he was proposing that, and I just literally saw it and like moved on because I was like, no way that happens. But obviously, that's great. I don't know if it would apply to me. It probably wouldn't because I'm not living down there. But my property taxes are insane. Did he say how the revenue? How does that work?
So you have to think you still have property taxes from investors. And there's a lot of second home owners, a lot of investment properties here in Florida. I don't know the actual percentage from actual homesteaded properties to invested properties, but it's not like you're going to lose 100% of the taxable income of the property taxes. And he also proposed tourism tax. We have a tremendous amount of tourism that comes here. So if you can figure out a way to capture more tourism tax where people are not happy to pay it, but they will pay it to come here and pass that on to the local municipalities, cities, then I think that that's a solvent. I also think that it's not the governor's job to figure out how the cities fund their bills. I think personally, I'm not going to pick on any individual city, but there are cities out there that are really taking advantage of this, in the counties that are really taking advantage of this money. And they need to start figuring out different ways because think about your grandma, right? Like if your grandma or grandfather owns a house here and they bought it 30 years ago and their tax bill keeps going up, but they're like on a fixed income, they're just going to get priced out. They're going to end up having to sell their home and have nowhere to go. So I think it's a great solve. And I don't personally think it would be great if he did, but I don't think he's going to achieve 100%. I think he might achieve like a significant break in property taxes for the primary residents. And I do think that will cause a little bit of a stir. But kind of circling back on your original question, what breaks the stalemate? Honestly, I'm starting to see a little bit more showing requests. I'm starting to see people starting to move again. Buyers are starting to look and actually execute contracts again. I think that there's this the cloud is starting to kind of lift a little bit, and people are starting to realize, like, I think this is probably as low as it's going to go, and I don't want to get caught on the back end when something does happen, and now all of a sudden it's a bidding war all over again. Like, I would just say to both investors and people looking for single family homes for themselves to live in, or townhomes, like, now's a really good time. People are willing to come, but sellers are willing to come to the table, and they're looking at, they're looking at aggressive offers. Like, you could submit an offer for 20% less than an asking price, and people are taking it right now.
Yeah, it's amazing what's happened and how quickly things can shift too. And like, I totally agree with you. Whenever somebody talks about the market, I always get frustrated because it's like, I just sold a property in New Jersey for $15K above. It was a $350,000 property, but I sold it. It was one of my rentals for $15K above asking. Now that's not common right now, and I wouldn't say that that's what's happening everywhere, right? But I think I like how you broke that down, and I think that's smart, and I think it's good that there is this cycle, like that's needed. There needs to be some reprieve, because the trend of Tampa, like Austin or Phoenix, it's unsustainable. There's just no way that you can continue to have home prices raised by 10% a year for infinity, so or more. So. Yep. That, back to my last question then, knowing what you know and knowing like what you've seen shifting, what are you looking to do this year? Like, what are your goals, and how does that play into the overall outlook?
Yeah, definitely. So 2026. So a year ago, I decided I was going to scale out my development operations. So I went out and took a bunch of my cash, and I went and bought a ton of land all over these neighborhoods that are zoned for multi-unit. So like quadplexes, triplexes, duplexes. And I went and just put all my cash in land, which, looking back, was a terrible idea. But, if the market kept ripping, it would have been a great idea. So my strategy for 2026 is really to simplify, recapitalize, because right now I'm looking to do less deals, but more quality deals. And then I'm focusing my time on building out my real estate developer community that I started, the Developer Collective. I think that it's a community for developers and builders and industry professionals just to come around and collaborate with real estate development here in the Tampa Bay area. I really enjoy bringing people together and connecting people to make things work, and the rising tide lifts all boats mentality. So I'm focusing more of my time on the community, and I'm probably going to do 4 projects in 2026. I'll do likely 1 build to sell and 3 build to rents, which are going to consist of, I'm doing this product here that's like, it's a duplex with ADUs, but you split it down the middle. So it's a townhouse, and each townhouse has an ADU. You can then remove the lot split and make it a true quad if you wanted to, or you can sell it off as fee simple townhouse plus ADU. I like to have a lot of exit options on my development. And then I'll be doing just regular duplexes, which are townhouse, and then also triplexes, which are like a single family house with 2 ADUs in the back. Because where I think we're going in the future is, when people go and buy a house for themselves, they're going to want to figure out how to minimize their mortgage payment. And in order to do that, if it produces income for them, it's going to offset that mortgage payment. It's almost like a house hack. Instead of having to rent your bedrooms out, you just rent the other units out.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when I tell people how should you start investing in real estate in a time where it's getting increasingly harder and harder to buy real estate, the debasement of the dollar, it's not getting any easier. All of this, I say that's the best way to do it. If you can find an ADU, a mother-in-law suite, if you want to share rooms, that's how I did it. You mentioned that's how you did it. Some people just don't want to do that. I would do it if you could, but yeah, I think that's awesome. That's a great way to get started. So 1 a quarter for you. That's what it sounds like. Talk to me about the community and what gave you the idea to start the community, because we're all about community. I love it. That's like my favorite thing, is to do the podcast and bring people in and show them what's possible through network relationships. They need to meet this person who meets that person, and like it all comes together. That's how it worked for me. So give me the background on what made you even decide to start it.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm a part of another mastermind group that is for men, and I started learning the power of community and the power of other high achieving individuals coming together to focus on bettering themselves and their businesses. And I just really developed this passion for it. I've always connected people. I always liked bringing people together in social settings. So as I was originally navigating this development process by myself, I had no one to go to. I was trying to figure out, who do I hire for an architect? What should I be looking for? What's the next steps? Am I making a mistake? Is this waterproofing correctly? I have no idea. And I made a tremendous amount of very expensive mistakes on my first 2 projects. Not the ones where I hired to build on your lot, but when I took them on and I started being the active developer, the project still made a ton of money at the end, but I lost $75K, $100K on mistakes. Side note, beautiful thing about development, if you underwrite your numbers correctly, the development project will absorb mistakes like that, but it's nice not to give up your profit for stuff like that. So I was like, it would be really nice to have a community of guys that were developers and builders and architects, lenders, all these people in a room together that are focused on ground up construction, residential mostly, a little bit of commercial, coming together to figure out how we can help each other. And if I run into an issue, I can put it in the WhatsApp chat and say, hey guys, does anybody have a good shell contractor? Or hey, who's got a good waterproofing guy that can come and look at my project to make sure that this is waterproofed correctly, which is the number one reason that people get sued in new construction real estate in Florida. And that the resources are there. We're helping each other out. And not to mention, I'm bringing guys in that have flipped before, and now they want to kind of take the next level and learn real estate development. Well, what better room to be in than surrounded by a bunch of real estate developers and builders that are doing $20 to $50 million worth of production in a year, that have the experience to help, and they're willing to. So that's why I decided to start the Developer Collective, because I thought, this is a really cool opportunity to bring together everybody. And then we're also having conversations like, hey guys, where are you seeing the next opportunity? How powerful it is if I can turn around and bring 4 guys in my group and say, hey, let's go focus on Central Oak Park and St. Pete. Let's all focus on this area and start revitalizing it. All right, let's do it. And now you got 4 guys there building new construction that are totally revitalizing the area. And like I said earlier, rising tide lifts all boats, versus one guy trying to take down the whole neighborhood, one new build at a time. It's going to take a tremendous amount of time before everyone else is like, that's the spot. So that, and we also have power in numbers when it comes to the city. We can meet with the city of Tampa. We can meet with the city of St. Pete, other cities, and just have conversations with them about what we're seeing. City of St. Pete, actually next quarter, I plan to sit down with them, with a lot of guys in my group, to talk about what we are seeing boots on the ground. Because when you have the city and they're making all these zoning changes and the parking requirements and, your stormwater and impact fees, they're not listening from their developers. They're just sitting behind a desk thinking, crunching numbers whoa, look how much money we can make if we increase our impact fees in Tampa by 100% over the next 5 years. Not thinking oh, wow, this is really going to slow down development, and all of the developers in this area are going to jump ship and go to St. Pete because impact fees are 1/4 and they can make more profit. So hearing from guys like us saying, hey, these are really what's happening, not from you behind a desk trying to crunch numbers and going and telling Tampa Bay Times what's happening. This is actually what's happening. And there's value in that too. So hopefully that answers your question on why.
Yeah, no, it did. Yeah. Collaboration is the way. And that's what I think that most people that I look up to or look up at, they're always trying to pull me up, and I think that when you're stuck in this mode, you got to do everything alone and lone wolf, it's me against the world, I just don't think you get as far. I really don't. And I'm sure some people will find success in that, but the more that I've connected the dots and, just tried to serve and say, go meet this person can really help you, and to create or curate a space where everyone can do that together, I think it's really powerful. Is it a membership based monthly thing, or do you pay for how do people get involved if they wanted to?
Yeah, it is. It's actually invite only. We try to guard the room pretty well, but if there are people that are high level, I encourage them to reach out. But yes, it is a annual membership. And it's a very reasonable rate to get in, and we're just building at this point, so it's a lower rate to get in. And honestly, I didn't start this company to make money. I started this company because I enjoy fostering relationships and bringing people together, and I think it's an incredible opportunity for that. So yeah, the Developer Collective is reach out from on Instagram or Dustin at Developer Collective and feel free to inquire. But yeah, it's invite only mostly, and we do take sponsors as well from people like title and attorneys, things like that. So
cool, love it. A last question for me, like, you have like an extensive background in business and being in the Marines, and I can tell that you're really disciplined and like you have a plan, right? I'm curious about the why behind it all. Like, going out and doing development and trying to create a community, and you kind of make it seem easier than it is. There's a lot that goes into this. I'm curious, what's the thing that gets you out of bed every morning, and what's moving you forward on a day-to-day basis?
that's a great question. So I'm a big advocate about enjoying the journey. And
Same.
I think that there needs to be a path to enjoy a journey upon, if that makes sense. So once you set yourself a goal, a lot of guys, entrepreneurial, they'll set themselves a goal and then they'll hit the goal. And then at the end, they're just like let down. They'll celebrate for like a day, but then they feel this sense of disappointment because it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. I run into this a lot. Like guys make their first million, like, oh wow, I have $1 million in my bank account now. And you look at it, and you stare at it, and you're like, where's the balloons? Where's the confetti? Where's this magical veil that was supposed to unveil? And like, now my life completely changes. No, that's not what it's about. What it's about is what got you there. So I actually have an alternative view on moving the goalpost per se, that a lot of people say, don't move your goalpost. Well, I think that you should move your goalpost, because once you've reached the million or whatever your goal is, it doesn't need to be even monetarily focused goal. But once you reach that goal, you need to create another goal. You need to move it so that you have a path in which to enjoy the journey. So when you're asking me like why, I enjoy building things. I enjoy relationships. I enjoy seeing things executed from vision, which is like the definition of real estate development, right? You draw something on paper and then you get to like go and build it and see it come to life. That's why development excites me, really. And the community excites me because like I get to be around rock stars, and both of which do not require me to be a slave to my work. I can have fun doing it, and then I can also go spend time with my family. I have a 3-year-old, and I've been married for 7 years to my beautiful wife. And that's very important to me, is to go travel and experience the world. And both of those jobs I can do from afar and here. So I guess, and I didn't even really talk about, like, I have a hobby, like passion project too. I do, it's called Tribe Travel. And we put together these epic bucket list trips for men, high caliber, high net worth men that go together. And we do these awesome trips, and we get together and we go and we did Mount Kilimanjaro, we did Patagonia, we did Costa Rica surf trip, Nicaragua surf trip. We're going to go do Alaska heli adventure. I put all those together because we get a group of like 14, 15 guys, and we go and we have fun. But more importantly, we hold each other accountable, and we talk about our goals and really identify each other's blind spots. And I think that that's incredibly important. So I know that's a little bit off track of what you asked, but
no, that was exactly what I asked. I mean, like,
okay.
Life is tribe, life is community. I mean, I've had this, thing, this fall summit type of experience that I think you're kind of talking about, where you get to a goal. Like I just, I'm trying to sell this property. I sold it. I literally within the next second, I was like, and it took me from deciding to sell the property to execution of selling the property, 6 months of like, I got to do this. I got to do that. Made all this money from this property within seconds. I was like, what are we doing now? And it's just not part of me is like, how do I enjoy the wins more? How do I enjoy the experience more? How do I enjoy the company more? And I think that's the number one thing, is the people that you're doing this with. So I love it, man, because what's the purpose of making all this money if you can't enjoy your life along the way? And like, I've interviewed a lot of people, most of which who come on our podcast are not, they're all pretty happy people. I feel like I get that, but I've met some people that have really, really, really made it in this world who are just sad or miserable or out of shape and just don't like themselves. I'm like, man, it's hard enough to climb a mountain. I wouldn't want to climb a mountain that I figured out at the top that I didn't want to climb in the first place, you know? So, I appreciate you sharing all that. I think it's great. That type of thing is next for me, you know, like going on cool adventures and stuff. I've done the traveling, but I'd love to learn more about what you do. So, great. This is just great. Great to get to know you. I have a new friendly face in Tampa when I'm down there, and I'm sure we could connect. But
Absolutely.
if people want to learn more about you, Dustin, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Instagram is probably the best way. Just reach out on the Dustin Baldwin is my handle there. That's my personal handle. There's not a lot of business on there, but I prefer to connect with people on a personal level, and then business comes naturally after that, after you create a relationship with someone. So the Dustin Baldwin is my Instagram handle, and then email as well. And the email would be Dustin@velocitydev.net, DEV. So yeah, I encourage anyone to reach out. If anything I talked about today sounds interesting, happy to help anybody and share more about my story and kind of how I got where I am today. And more importantly, Corey, I really appreciate you and Ryan having me on today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and look forward to continuing our relationship and grabbing coffee or lunch when you're down in Tampa next.
Cool. Thanks, man. This has been awesome. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before we wrap this show up, I want to leave you with this. If you're listening to the show, chances are you're doing pretty well in your career. You're making maybe 6 figures. You're putting money into your retirement accounts, maybe stacking some cash in a brokerage account, but you're still waiting for that next level. And here's the truth. Waiting just costs you time. Every month you're on the sidelines is another month you could have had a property paying you and another step closer to financial freedom that you didn't take. Ryan and I know this because we stayed on the sidelines too long. We talk about this sometimes. We had the money, but not the guidance. And once we finally got our first property, everything shifted. It was the catalyst that built our entire portfolio and ultimately gave us freedom. And that's exactly why we built the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, to cut out wasted time, just give you the exact blueprint and surround you with a network of people who are closing deals every single week. So if you're tired of waiting and you're ready to finally get your first deal, click the link in the show notes and schedule a call with me. Let's map out your strategy and get you moving before another year slips by. So if you're enjoying the show, one thing that would go a long way for us would be sharing this podcast episode or the podcast in general with a friend, family member, or someone else who you think might benefit from it. It's pretty hard to grow a podcast, and we're bringing out these episodes every single week, and we want to continue to do so. And in order for us to grow, a couple things you can do is, one, leave us a 5-star review. That would go a long way. And then just share this with someone else that you think could benefit. That would be amazing, and we appreciate it. And we're looking forward to bringing out more episodes for you.